all being in attendance. Tonight we have an agenda which is quite large, long, and compact. What I'd like to do right now are, and I'm just asking as the time goes on, there will be time for people to arrive. We have representatives from ZBT this evening here for, let's say Bragg Road, Cronin Road, Bragg Road, representatives. And that would be, the properties are located on Bragg Road, assessors map 24-241. Anybody here present for that hearing tonight? Mr. Albert, thank you. Very good, thank you, folks. And that's fine. And 7:45, we have another public hearing. Excuse me. Site plan 5253 CPT. And that's on Coy Hill. We got representatives here for that, for the Coy Hill project.
Yes.
You represent both?
Yeah, he'll be here before then, but if not, I will.
Okay, very good. And we have a continuation for a public hearing on Cutler Road. And that would be with Seaboard. So they've got a couple minutes here. So with that, Kathy, why don't we do the folks, if we would, 8 through 12 right now, the invoices for Turley publication. Take a look at your agenda, Bob, Derick, and Melissa. We got 2 for Turley, okay, 11 and 12. Is there a motion to accept any?
I make a motion, we accept the invoices for Turley Publications as written.
Motion made, second. Both of us, all 5 of us understand what they're for?
Aye.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass them around, Melissa. Please. Bob, if you would just hang on to everything at your left when you come. 1, 2, 3 invoices for Graves Engineering.
I make a motion, we pay invoices or for Graves Engineering as written.
Motion made, second. Second, everybody understands what they're for, peer reviews and follow-ups. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kathy, payroll. Kathy's payroll as written, please.
I make a motion that we do Kathy's payroll as written.
Motion made, second. Questions? Two checks as written. Hearing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do these work, do you know, Kathy?
Yeah, we
Give
need
them
those.
Stevie Scavera,
Yes.
how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. A&R,
Yes.
Cronin Road.
Yeah.
Do we have the Form As?
Yeah.
And do we have 4 copies?
4 copies of,
We need 4 copies of the plan to be filed.
oh, I didn't know you
That
needed
come
4
in.
copies.
Yep, that have to be not signed, but in with it. Is there,
I can bring them in tomorrow.
Steve, is there a problem, Bob, Derick, you and Melissa? We review the A&R, get that signed, and Steve drop them off first thing tomorrow to Kathy? Because those are ours, Steve, that end up in the file. If a question come up, you have that on the deed and registered, and we have those in copy, okay?
Okay,
If you
great.
could, Kathy, for me is all set?
Yes, I need a check.
Okay, put it on my checkbook.
Yeah, just keep writing, Steve.
Just leave it blank.
Yeah.
Photocopies for you.
Because you're only doing the one lot, right?
Yes.
All you need to fill out is the signature line.
That's all.
He's gonna break it up.
Knowing how much of the account would help too.
Yeah, no doubt.
For them to file.
Go ahead. Steve, if you could, just explain for everybody here what your intent is right here with the property you're gonna use, please.
My intent there is just to carve off one lot that my house is on, that's all. Separate it from the rest.
It's the back lot?
It's
If we're
the-
looking where
it's
the
the
house
front.
is,
Yeah, the road would be, right here.
yeah, here's your road. That-
Where am
right-
I? Yeah, the
Yeah,
road's
road is
here.
right there.
Yeah, right, and this is where
You're taking that out and everything else?
everything else is gonna stay
Yeah,
where it is.
is the way it is. Derek, you understand what I'm doing?
Cut it
Yeah,
out.
that's, that chunk, and this is his, that's his, this is all his.
Just separating his house from the rest of the
Yeah, the
property.
house and,
45,000.
45,000 square feet. That's gonna be there, and the left is gonna be over.
Yeah, right.
That's yours. This. Bob? Yeah. No, do yourself.
No, I just waited for
House, lot, that's what he's gonna keep, this is common, this is.
This is all of it.
Yeah, 45, yeah. Okay.
In the house.
Yeah.
So that it stays. So since they were born. They didn't know what that was.
That's the old stuff, that's what I learned. I
So
didn't have time to learn that.
Oh, I sneak behind. All right. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
I can move over to it. Does anybody have any questions? Alright, this is all set. He's gonna have a lot, lot 5, 45,000 square feet, the house is existing as shown.
You're welcome.
Some engineering signature of the block. Is a motion, and Steve, you'll get him in here tomorrow if you would.
yes.
Yeah. All right, the way it's presented with the understanding and explained, is there a motion to accept the A&R provided by Stevie Scavera, the owner of the property, for breaking the house lot of 45,000 square feet out of the rest of his property on the building code. Is there a motion?
I would move, Mr. Chairman, to approve the A&R that Mr. Scavera has presented to the board tonight on Warren Road as described on the plan.
Motion made, second. Any questions about it from any of the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was.
That's okay.
In case you did. Let me go right. Steve, when you take it, make sure you don't roll it just yet. Libby.
Yeah, I'm gonna try a little bit.
Everybody's-
Thank you.
Yep, you're all set with that, Steve, thanks. And if you, and before the end of the workday tomorrow would be great, all right?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, representatives for Bragg Road, please. Anybody here? If you have anything you wish to mount on a stand that you brought or anything, do so at this time, thank you. Thanks, guys. Yep, see you later. I forgot.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My name's Gary LaGoria. I'm an attorney at Park Street in West Springfield, Massachusetts.
Yep.
I represent Mr. Blake and his wife, some Bragg Road residents,
Okay,
concerning their opposition. It's my understanding that there's a temporary moratorium that's in place at this time. And I think this hearing cannot go forward under the special permit that was filed February 20th, 2019. I think the law is pretty clear. I know I've read Judge Callan's decision. I don't think Judge Callan's decision prevents our position in this particular case. I think there's a moratorium, and there shouldn't be any hearings on this during this period of time through May 31st of this year. There was a vote on it. The Attorney General Healy has indicated that she ratified it, and it's in full force and effect. I don't know how they can come up and have a hearing on this under a special permit. The special permits under the new bylaws, when they filed for the A&R back on May 8th of 2018, that was on a site review status. They're coming here on a special permit. I think it's completely illegal, and I don't think they can go forward on that.
yes, sir. You're representing
I represent Mr. Blake, Mrs. Blake.
Mr.
and-
Blake. All right, thank you. All right, point, hold on. Go ahead. Speak.
That we pulled the special permit. That's what he said,
That we, what?
that we pulled the special permit.
Stand by.
That's part of,
Stand by me.
I didn't understand that.
All right, and, I was just speaking to myself.
Email, I can
Hold on.
go
Yes, I
print
have
it
a
up.
copy.
Oh, you have a copy? Yeah, he's got a copy.
I
I'm
have
sure it's in somewhere.
this or something.
That's for,
Mr. Christie,
Yes, sir.
on May 8th, 2017,
2018.
about 10 o'clock in the morning, you and I had a discussion, did we not? Yes or
The
no?
very first one, yes, we did.
Yes, we did, thank you very much. You held in your hand at that time two, is that correct? Two applications for an A&R that we spoke about.
Correct. Mr. Alberts and Mr. Angelo's properties on Bragg Road.
Those were the two that you were gonna present. The third one was presented to the board that night at the school, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank
That
you very
was
much.
Coyle.
That's correct, okay. The lawsuit which incurred was in reference to all three, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, point. Now, reference yours, your statement. The town was sued by the applicant ZPT, okay? A decision came back from the judge.
I understand. I've read the decision.
Yep, so did we. And in conference with ZPT's lawyer, and still, folks, we, the five of us, are not responsible for the statement I'm making. The town attorney is. And my last meeting with ZPT, I did make a
oh, yes,
statement that we would have an answer from the town attorney to continue on, did I not?
Yeah,
Right?
that's right.
We were waiting for that decision. We were at the understanding with you folks. Now, this is in reference to the whole thing that we did make a decision not to further go forward with the complaint,
Yep.
okay? And that everything was gonna be taken care of. And as of 7:15 tonight, nothing has come back from that attorney, and I did call that attorney the following morning. Kathy, what time was it? Just about 9:45, because he was at court. And then I did speak with the secretary from the selectman's office. She had also contacted him also. So we have nothing back. So the board is in limbo, and it's kind of a tough situation. Although, I'm not gonna get into discussion with lawyers, okay? I understand the abutters or Mr. Blake's lawyer making his comment, and I understand the decision that the town has made. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm damn tired of it all, folks. I am. And I can walk out of here right now. We've been put behind too many rocks. And I don't care what the left and right feels for me. I have to go with what we made a decision on the other day. I have to, okay? I'm making a decision now. I have to go with the decision we made last week to continue on with this, sir. It'll be noted, and you can take your legal recourse whichever way you may. I advise you to do so. I am in a bind. I represent these 5 people and everybody in this town, okay, as far as the planning board's concerned, and I'm taking the heat right now. I am going to continue on with ZPT's hearing, and you can do whatever you legally can, and I request that you do so. And the lawyer's name for the town is Jeffrey Blake, and he represents the town of Warren, B-L-A-K-E, and he works for Kopelman and Page.
Is that their Boston office? I know the firm.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. You guys know everybody. But yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And I'm also gonna ask you to contact the selectman's office and speak to them, a representative from them, why this has not been rectified, okay? Because we have the right, the board and I have the right to call Mr. Blake, which we did, and they did also. I'm in a bind, and I'm gonna go with the decision we made last week as a board, sir. And I will take it, I understand where you folks stand, and I don't know what to do other than to keep going, sir. Because, and the point being, Mr. Christie and I had a wonderful introduction on May 8th, 2017. Okay, that night, and then legal action transpired, the judge's decision, which you have read, came back.
That's on an approval not required. I mean, that's almost granted every time it comes before you, unless there's a subdivision. That's the wording of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that should have been granted. They won because of your decision really wasn't very prudent. I
You're not telling me what it was or nothing, so don't take what I said, call, and thank you very much. Okay, let's move on with ZPT.
There's people who.
Folks,
Are you representing the people of this town?
I'm representing everybody here on the decision I made. If you folks don't like it,
Is that
this
right?
hearing started last week, okay? This is only an introduction to what they're proposing. There is nothing going to be made, no decision. Last week, we talked about the A&R and what they were going to propose. Tonight, they're showing us. That's it. It's the opening. It's an introduction, the way we run this, okay? So you're gonna see. Until I get a decision from someone that's above me, and really, ma'am, there's only one damn person above me, and he's sitting way the hell up there. I will not back down, okay?
But there's a moratorium in place.
There's a moratorium. 150 people voted.
You voted for a moratorium, and you got the moratorium. The moratorium was voted on after the A&Rs were presented.
A&Rs don't mean anything.
The A&Rs do, sir.
That's not a
The
solar
A&R is
field.
breaking the property out. What the judge's decision made says I cannot overrule. He is he is the decision maker, so the A&R at that time would have come in that night.
He has the A&R, and that's fine.
Mr. Blake, I understand your frustration, you don't understand mine. I am not here to represent legal, I am here to represent everything that goes on. There is nothing that can stop us or will stop us from having a presentation of what they want to
You're not
propose.
supposed to have that presentation
Who says
tonight.
they're not to, sir?
Well, there's a moratorium in place.
Then get that in writing from a judge.
No,
We
well,
got it from the Attorney
Attorney
General,
General.
right here.
Well, I don't know, we'll look at our
Attorney General
options for
said
adjunctive relief.
We
but-
can't go any further with this until
And
May.
no, anything that came in, once the moratorium was voted on that night, we cannot hear.
Right.
And we have not, sir. The presentation of these two, plus the other one, which came in that night at the high school, we have to hear.
No, you don't. Attorney General says you do not have to hear
After
it.
after the public hearing. On May 8th.
Do I have to have, if I have
No
a piece of
way.
land, do I have
You
to?
didn't read this. You didn't read it.
Bill, if I have an
No,
A&R, do I need a
Rich,
piece of
hold
land?
it, hold it.
That decision was a very limited decision by Judge Callen. I mean,
Now you're putting more words to my background here. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We questioned it.
limited.
When that decision came down, all five of us plus legal counsel sat together, okay? Yeah, it is. Yet, legal counsel was asked to make a decision.
okay, well, you don't have one, so why are you going forward?
Why shouldn't I?
Because you're
It's
supposed to
only
get.
an introduction to a project. That's all it is.
It should be introduced at this point in
Where
time when
does it
there's a
say that in
moratorium.
the regulations of the law?
Well, there's a moratorium in
The
effect.
moratorium started at,
Well, no application for a large-scale solar energy facility shall be accepted from the effective date of this temporary moratorium.
that's correct,
Okay,
from the effective date of the moratorium, which was
which was
when?
January 17th, 2019.
Okay,
Okay, when was this, this
May 8th.
application was taken out, no, February 20th,
the
2019.
application was because the moratorium, you'll have the moratorium was after that, was before that, yet these had already been in our hands, in our possessions, and stamped. Okay, you can speak now, sir, thank you.
So if, George Carizzi, I represent the applicant, 0 Point. So if I could just give a little background as to what happened here. The town was looking for a zone change back in May 8th, back in May of 2018. Prior to the town vote on the zone change in 2018, my applicant proposed, or my client submitted some A&R plans for review and consideration. The filing of an A&R plan, the simple submission of an A&R plan to the town planning board freezes the zoning. And it freezes the zoning for 3 years after the ultimate endorsement of the A&R plan. That's the statute. So the zoning bylaw that we're looking at, snapshot, is the zoning that was in effect on May 8th, 2018, prior to the vote. All other subsequent zoning amendments don't apply to the land shown on the A&R plan. That land is protected under the zoning bylaw that was in effect on May 8th, 2018. That zoning bylaw, number one, did not require special permit approval for these solar projects, and the moratorium wasn't part of it. So those subsequent zoning amendments don't apply to the land that's shown on those A&R plans. That's what Judge Callen's decision is. He says the plans are deemed filed, and that the zoning in effect at the time of the filing shall control the land shown on those plans. That's what we're dealing with here. That's why they have to go forward on it. That's what the purpose of that suit was, and that's why Judge Callen came down with that ruling, saying that these go forward. As far as the special permit app, as I've discussed with town council, our goal is to, on the projects that were subject of the A&R apps, to withdraw the special permit app and go forward on site plan only, because that's what the criteria of the zoning bylaw was as of May 7th, 2018, the date before that meeting. So that's what we're going for. This is really only a site plan application. Now, until Judge Callan came down with that decision, we were working under a parallel track that maybe we can get special permit at the same time. But since Judge Callan's come down with the decision, we're withdrawing our special permit apps, going forward solely with the site plan applications. And that's what's before the board. And that moratorium doesn't say you can't take those because that moratorium isn't in the text of the applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw that govern this property. That's why we're here tonight.
Okay, well, I disagree with, an A&R is an A&R. I mean, the purpose of that A&R, as I see it, was to get 200 feet of frontage to make this project work. You can get 200 feet of frontage for a building lot.
Just, if I may, just through the chair, the purpose of the A&R was the free zoning.
Yeah,
So
well,
you say the
it's-
purpose of, so A&R has multiple effects. The approval not required application was filed for the purpose of freezing the zoning. And that's the reason, and that's why Judge Callan's come down with the decision, that's what it is. That's the decision before, that's the decision of the court, that's the law of the case, to use a more legal term, but this is where we are, we're going forward on this. Going back to the chair's first comments, I did after the last meeting send another email to town council, a second one, with zero response.
You just got right here, you got a zero response too, right?
Yes.
So.
So, I mean, that was a week ago, I was
One
kind
might be
of
from
there.
Brendan regarding, is
Yeah,
that one you handed him?
Brendan.
Yeah, so that's not George's email.
That was
You
my
hand to
first, that was, I sent,
There's another one that I had, Melissa.
and then there's a second one with no response. But our hope is to go forward on the site plan application.
Note that we're objecting to you withdrawing the special permit.
Okay. Well, it's our application, Mr. Chair.
I know.
So respectfully, we
We can
withdraw.
object to it, too.
If
I mean,
you
you're
think so.
withdrawing it at the last second.
Well-
And you were going in under, I mean,
I don't know what's going on
Please make your notice known, as I asked to the selectmen. I gave you Mr. Blake's
yes.
name and complement and page, let them know what you intend to do, and I hope you do go forward with whatever you wish to, representing the people and everybody else. So you had a question, please?
I have a question. Is this gonna be all one lot, or is this the landlocked backland with no frontage that we're gonna allow industrial use in our neighborhood for?
We don't know.
Okay.
Simple reason, this is what we're here for, to find out what it's gonna be. The A&R was accepted, and this was moved to have going through this way, so, and everybody would find out tonight.
So
that's all.
they're allowed to not do anything until then?
No one can do anything, Sue, I'm sorry, Sue, no one can do anything. As I stated a minute ago, we signed off on an A&R. Now we're here to see what the heck they're proposing, and this is what they're going to show you tonight. You'll have an aerial view, it's broken down the way engineers do it, and once this is presented, there's another hearing where everybody here, which we've asked for 20 years, to bring questions back, and they will have all the answers, hopefully, for the questions that you folks have or anybody else has, as an applicant would. And we go forward that way, okay? Now, Bob, Derick, Sue, Melissa, move on,
Yeah, that's,
time.
we're already,
Yeah, I know, we just blew everything here.
You got a minute.
we got 1 minute.
Adam, go ahead, open it up and give us a quick.
I don't recall seeing it in the package, because I know where this was submitted last year, but I just wanted to submit the battery information package, which we've submitted on Coy Hill and Goya, it's the same thing. I just didn't see a package in the electronic version, so just to cover our bases, here's a copy of it.
Okay.
I actually have a second one if you'd like, the second one or that
Yeah,
first one
just,
too.
yeah, leave them both right there,
Okay.
and I've got the, this one.
Have you opened the meeting, Mr. Chairman?
No, well, at this time, I'm thanking for bringing that up. Open up the public hearing on, Bragg Road for the properties on it. Bragg Road, special permit 292, site plan 59, ZBT. Adam Christie will be presented. Go ahead.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Adam Christie. I'm Vice President with ProTech Energy Solutions, representing ZPT Energy Solutions LLC. Just a quick introduction to ZPT. We are a turnkey development and construction of large-scale solar. In the last few years with Massachusetts solar programs, ProTech and ZPT, we've developed in excess of 150 megawatts, and we've built even more so than that. ZPT is a joint venture between two local companies out of Worcester. 0 Point Development, they have development and interconnection specialists, and ProTech, we develop and we also do our own EPC, which is engineering, procurement, construction. So we actually build these projects ourselves. For this type of project, we've entered into a letter of intent with both landowners. One of them, we have a purchase and sale agreement with Mr. Alberts, who has the land closest to Bragg Road. And then Mr. Anangelo, we have currently a letter of intent to do a lease. And with the purpose of the A&R, just to give a quick background, just to tie it all in, is the purchase and sale with Mr. Alberts is going to be conveyed to Mr. Anangelo, combining all of the lots into one lot. And that'll all be owned by Mr. Anangelo at the conclusion of this process.
If I may, is that a process in work, Mr. Albert? Just stay seated, sir. Is that a process in work with Mr. Anangelo now? You're combining the
I
properties?
don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Just the chairman.
Please
So
don't- please
we
don't
submitted
get-
a letter from our attorney who's dealing with the purchase and sale with Mr. Alberts and the conveyance and the terms of the purchase and sale. And there's a memorandum of understanding between us and Mr. Anangelo. That information was submitted with the application for this because the zoning enforcement officer,
Right.
when this was first looked at, when we first submitted this project back in October, whenever it was, in the fall, late summer, brought it up that this does not have frontage, this does, this can't. And once we provided that information of the benefit to Mr. Anangelo being the benefactor at the end of this, that's when we were able to move forward finally. And then obviously the completion of the A&R process with the judgment and everything.
Yep.
So that's where we're at with this type of property. So as I said, we're a local development firm, we build it ourselves. One of the benefits of us being involved from the beginning is we're long-term with the landowner. 25 years with 5-year extensions. So we're essentially tied to this project for 40 years. We maintain the systems after we build them. And I know before this, we sent a letter out in October to the abutters, and we sent one out 2 weeks ago as well with my contact information to reach out, kind of give a quick description of the project. So we're trying to get some feedback. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get some tonight, but we're trying to get some feedback prior, see if we can incorporate any of the concerns into our design. So with that being said, I will turn the project over to our engineer, Kevin McGarry from Fuss O'Neill. He'll run through the existing conditions and site plan,
Yeah, that's
and then
fine.
open up for questions.
Thank you, Adam. So for the record, my name is Kevin McGarry.
Kevin, if I'm gonna interrupt you, and I don't
Sure.
want to do that. Right now, folks, we gotta switch real quick, and we'll be right back to you. We have a, 7:30? No, we've got time. No, 7:45. Right, 7:45 was Coy Hill.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open it and then
And
continue
shuffle
with,
it back
yeah, I
over
just
there.
wanna shuffle, is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, this time we're gonna open up the public hearing for Coy Hill Road, special permit 284, 285, site plan 5253, ZBT. We've opened it with the understanding from the applicant, who is part of the ZBT firm, associates. We will continue it as soon as we, all right, so we'll continue ZBT Coy Hill Road at this time and go right back. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I don't remember where I left off. So for the record,
Name.
my name is Kevin McGarry. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I'm a project manager with Fuss & O'Neill. What I have just up here for administrative purposes, these are just some rendered site plans. What we're showing is exactly what we submitted in the site plan application package. We just added some color and the background image to sort of aid in the presentation. To get everybody orientated, north is straight up, Bragg Road is here, and Cronin Road is located over here. As we mentioned, it's lot 24 and 24.1 and 27 of map 10, and it's in the rural zone. Bragg Road to the south, Cronin Road to the east, and then sort of undeveloped residential land both to the north and
It's not undeveloped, it's East Road.
wooded land to the north and to the west, excuse me. The total property area is 91 acres. The proposed amount of clearing is 51.5. The total area of grubbing will be 41.7, and I'll get into sort of how the phasing of the project works a little later on. And then the total area of the fence, which includes both the array and some of the detention basins, is 33.3 acres. So as I mentioned, what the project consists of is clearing, grubbing within the array area. We currently are proposing 6 detention basins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6th one here. Those detention basins also have a series of drainage swales that collect runoff from the array, divert them towards the detention basins to attenuate the peak flow prior to discharging off of our site. We'll also be constructing a gravel access road from Bragg Road up to our utility pads and battery storage system, and our interconnection will also be from Bragg Road on overhead poles up until that same point, at which point from there on, the connections between the panels themselves are mostly underground.
How many miles is the gravel road?
Mr. Chair, is there if I answer?
If you'd like, if you want to answer,
So
please,
the-
folks, direct it through us, all right, so we know we can keep order and keep moving on, okay?
So,
Ask the question, you'll get an answer.
Sure, so
Okay.
it's 935 feet from Bragg Road to the entrance of the array. As I mentioned, the 6 detention basins attenuate the peak flow. We prepared a very detailed stormwater management plan that was included in the application showing it will be attenuating the peak flows. There were 3 different design points that were evaluated. We had a design point in this location for this wetland, design point over here for this wetland, and then a design point down by Bragg Road. And again, just through those detention basins is how we attenuate the peak flow from the clearing and array area. The solar panels are actually not considered from a drainage standpoint to be an impervious surface. They have intermediate gaps between the individual panels, which allows sunlight to penetrate and promote grass growth underneath the panels. It also prevents concentrated runoff from long runs of the array. So instead of an entire row of the array running off at one concentrated point, the gaps allow the stormwater to run off of each individual panel, preventing concentrated flows and reducing erosion. We're proposing a grass meadow mix throughout the whole array to establish good ground cover during construction. From, like I said, the detention basins attenuate the peak flow. From a groundwater recharge and stormwater treatment standpoint, because there are no impervious surfaces, groundwater recharge and treatment are essentially accomplished through not needing it, because the only impervious surfaces are the small equipment pads for the electrical equipment and the battery storage system located near the entrance. And that's consistent with DEP's guidelines for solar development systems. Also included in our application was a erosion and sediment control plan. So during construction, we'd have a phasing plan. We'll go in, the site is cleared, and then once the site is cleared, the first thing is constructed are the various drainage systems. Throughout all construction, erosion sediment controls will be implemented. Those include silt fence, compost silt filter socks, construction entrances, catch basin inserts, stone check dams, and then we propose erosion control blanket on any slopes that are steeper than 3 to 1. As I mentioned, the drainage features are built and stabilized first in order to create a much more robust and physical erosion control barrier before the rest of the array field is constructed. So all the drainage gets constructed before the array field even is stirred. No work is proposed within 100 feet, within the 100-foot buffer, and the work is actually being kept 120 feet away from all the wetlands.
150.
We're talking about the wetlands.
Correct. That is sort of a very high-level overview of the project. We're here to answer any questions that the board may have. But I know you've had a couple of these in front of you already, so again, very similar in nature.
They're
from
similar,
a
but they're
design
very
standpoint.
different too.
Correct.
Each one is an extremely different scenario.
That's correct.
And everything else. With that, has all this gone and been approved by conservation?
We filed an ANRAD with conservation, basically confirming the wetland line and that all of our work is 120 feet outside of them.
Did
So
you
we
get
have
an-
been before.
Did you get an answer back?
Yes, we received a negative determination sometime in the fall.
So this is all cleared by them, correct? Your ANRAD and everything else?
Yes, the ANRAD has.
Alright.
Sorry, I said negative determination, but I meant confirmation, sorry. What's the form that was submitted?
It's
to the
an
ANRAD?
ORAD.
ORAD, sorry.
It's an ORAD. We haven't seen the plans, but we did receive the ANRAD and we issued an ORAD.
Alright, so, big thing, all the explanation you gave about your retention ponds, your water, your runoff, and everything else still has to be reviewed by conservation. So, between now and whatever time you wish, you've got to get up to conservation.
So
you gotta-
I believe we're outside of
You're outside?
conservation's purview because we're
They're
over.
completely out of
So-
jurisdiction. We haven't seen the plans, but what he's saying is that they're completely out of jurisdiction. We can take a quick look at that and
That wasn't stated at the beginning for me, but we lost there, okay.
I'm sorry, yeah, we kept all our work outside the 100-foot buffer of the wetlands, and in fact, we're 120 feet or 20 feet outside the buffer.
Bob, do you have any questions right now, reference that?
No, sir.
Derick? Go.
You mentioned that you're gonna, the process of building it, you said first you're gonna cut all the trees and then do the storm control,
Yes,
water
sir.
management. If there's a way you can do all the drainage before cutting the whole site?
So I just want to make one point of clarification in there. Before doing any clearing and any work on the site, the erosion and sediment controls go in first. So all the perimeter controls will be put in first. I do just want to clarify that one point. Typically, the site gets cleared all in one, during one phase, just so there's no multiple mobilizations for tree clearing. In order to be able to get access back to the rear detention basins, you have to be able to get to them and get equipment in there to do the work.
So the answer is no?
Sorry, we have 3 phases in which, so the 3 phases shown on plan CP 100, which is the overall site preparation plan. It shows the different phases broken down into multiple sub-phases. And in the plans, it's listed out, and essentially, it won't be cleared all at once.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It'll be the road leading up into the site, that would be built first, and then that basin in phase 2A. And then from there, there's phase 2B, which essentially is the clearing on the edge, and then that stormwater basin is installed. So essentially, we are gonna be clearing and installing these, going around the perimeter, like you were suggesting, prior to phase 3, which is clearing, and that is broken up into multiple sections as well.
Yeah, that's much better.
I'm sorry, you're right,
It's a big
Adam, I
site, and I was afraid of it, meanwhile, you do all the cutting.
That's
Correct.
correct. I misspoke.
So that's much better, thank you very much.
All set with that, Derick? Melissa? Kathy, has Graves been notified?
No, they will be tomorrow morning.
Okay, fellas?
Everything will be
And
set.
we'll provide them with all the information.
Alright, we're gonna call them tomorrow, so they'll know you're coming, or it's coming, okay?
Excellent.
And we'll get it right, and get it to them, and then we'll wait.
And then Jeff will prepare his proposal.
Yep, and so
Excellent.
the whole 9 yards, and you folks are in, so okay with that? Alright, Kathy, any administrative questions? Alright, for those that are here tonight with concerns, if you would, one at a time. We'll have some questions of what was just proposed to you, and that's all right now, because what happens from here is you just heard me state that Graves Engineering, which represents the town and which represents all of us, is a peer review. This plan will now go to the Graves Engineering, and they will review everything that's there to make sure, based on the standards set by the engineer, by the state, and or whatever else the applicant is going to try to do, retention ponds, the water and everything else, their proposed engineering review will be reviewed by the town engineering firm that represents this town, that's Graves Engineering. Until Graves Engineering gets back, nothing else will go on. Once Graves Engineering gets back, Graves Engineering walks in here, sits down, and they hash out the problems that they have, and we take other incoming questions and concerns by the abutters and property owners. So does anybody have a question based on what was presented right now? All right, I'm gonna start from the back left, please, my left, your right.
I think we have a lot of questions, and to have our questions answered, we'll get the answers they want to give us. So I think that as we go forward, it's realistic, and we have questions. And some of our questions we'll get answers for, but not the ones that they want.
In answer to that, we try here to make sure you have the answer, okay, when they come back. Yes, we all know that answers can be given, and you look there at numbers and figures like I have here and everything else, it's like, wow. And then Pierre will come back with, based on what they presented for the site, there's no problem, okay, in most of it, because they all kind of work so that it is a balance between. And then when the questions come back, we have the right to make sure that your answer gets as specific as can be, so that you are agreeable to it if it can be done. If not, orders of conditions are written by the board at the end. And a lot of the orders of conditions can be referenced to the concerns based by the abutter and surrounding people. Town highway superintendent, the fire department, police department may have questions. We're gonna get those questions answered, and the orders of conditions, and only being on the site plan, the site plan still has orders of conditions.
And that's a primary example.
Right.
Yep.
Yep, I know where we're going, thank you. I had a couple over here to my right, your far left. Fellas, there were hands up, yes, sir?
I had a question about the storage facility closest to Bragg Road. If there's a lightning strike, a fire, or some mishap, they told us the town will not respond to this. I'd like to know
Who
how
told
long.
you that, sir?
I was at a meeting here and they told us that.
The
That
town
the
will
town
not?
fire department would not respond to
Well,
any mishap
fir-
whatsoever. So
okay.
I'd like to have that
First
clarified.
of all, I'd like to know, because if you were at a meeting talking about it, I'd have to be here, and so was the board. That
Yeah,
is,
that
in the 20 years that we've been dealing with solar, that's never been the answer. Adam LaVoy, and before Adam, the fire chief before him, always had the affirmative answer. And I'll let Adam speak.
I can tell you that that is not the case. We absolutely would respond to any emergency in any of these solar facilities. That's inaccurate. I don't know where that came from, but certainly there are limitations to what we can do in certain events, but the battery storage has brought on some changes for us, but that's not accurate. We would respond to those events.
Has that been put in writing any place that
It's
people
in,
would know?
it's in Chief LaVoy, and I'm gonna go back to Mike Stasiak's. Chief LaVoy has been very receptive, and been proactive, not reactive. And it's in writing, and it's also part of the new, the bylaw presentation and the new bylaw that we're proposing, and it's always been understood. Now, Adam has had all the plans since I've been sitting here and since he's been chief.
Yeah, just to clarify, so maybe some discussions that ensued that, the only thing that I've stated from a fire department standpoint is that when it comes to equipment such as panels or something like that, if there wasn't a fire event for any reason, we haven't had any issues to the date, knock on wood, in this community. However, if there was an issue, the only statement we've made is that I'm not gonna risk fire personnel or safety of the individuals they're gonna replace their panels, that's it. I'm not gonna expend, unless it's a major life safety issue, for whatever reason, a worker's trapped when they're putting the field up or something like that. If there's no life safety emergency, they are gonna replace their equipment. I'm not gonna expend or risk any of the firefighters, for, electrical charge or something like that. That's the only thing I've stated. We'll absolutely respond to this emergency, we'll secure the emergency, we'll do whatever we have to do in the event. I'm just not going to risk, any firefighter safety over equipment, is all I've stated in the past.
I still have one more, yes, sir.
And I'm sorry if you mentioned this, but I'm gonna ask. What rain degree are these retention areas based on?
That will be determined when Graves Engineering comes back when they review everything there. He might be the engineer, the on-site and everything else. I would prefer that Graves Engineering get a hold of it the night they come in. You can come back and listen to everything, how it's set up, what the consistency is, the depth, if there's a swale next to it, and everything else, how it runs off. Okay? But that is part of the review, that is part of the way the plan's written up. To get into that right now, I have 2 other hearings. That's already been made for public record, and the next hearing they'll have, we'll be able to discuss it more thoroughly. Is that okay?
I guess it would have to be.
Bob, you got a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted, for this gentleman here that just asked that question, I think what the chairman is trying to explain to you is that they can present all of their findings, water levels, attenuation of water and all that, but until our peer engineer reviews it, what they may be telling us may not be accurate. So for us to discuss that now is a little bit premature because something may change in the peer review. Normally nothing does, but occasionally they do find differences, and then their engineering group and our engineer will work all that out. And then I think what Mr. Ramsey was referring to is at the next meeting, we'll have that permanent information for you to know. So your question would be very pertinent at that point, because then we'll give you an answer, or this engineer will give you an answer that's been approved.
And what's the timeline of the meeting between the engineers?
It'll be posted as soon as Graves Engineering has a chance to review everything. Usually it's a pretty good
Usually it's
turnaround.
within a week or two. Usually it's within a week.
Sue, you got a question?
I just had a question, if any deep hole tests were done on those retention areas, and if they weren't, would Graves do that?
Both. Answer your questions, yes, there's a whole booklet that's gonna tell you everything that we've looked at, and they can go through it in depth here. But as Bob said, and I said at the beginning, we let Graves go through it, and they'll come back with everything that's written right there, okay? All right, you had a question, sir?
I have 2 actually.
Very good.
The first one is, and this is to the gentleman who first spoke, through you. How many, so you've put together all these fields, how many have you decommissioned? And my second is, when exactly does the property change hands?
Decommissioning has never happened in the United States yet.
Is there a plan?
There is a
Do they-
decommissioning, each applicant has to supply a decommissioning plan. Each applicant also is held responsible for a decommissioning plan. Don Swistack, the assessor's office, and Kerry Schmidt in the tax office all have input on a decommissioning plan. There's a new one that's been proposed. Those that didn't attend, or those that did attend the meeting the other night, last Wednesday night, it was spoke about. Okay, so there is a decommissioning plan, there is decommissioning concerns that are shown, spoke of, and the applicant has to meet the standards for that.
Okay.
Okay, next.
And my second question, when exactly does the property change hands? When does it become?
I don't know, most of them are now leased, they're not sold anymore. The first ones were.
But we had heard that the property would change hands. I'd like to know when it.
The property, this property?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, and I believe Bob and Angelo sitting right to his right, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Bob, how are you? They're changing hands with the property, and then the applicant and Mr. Manangelo will be involved with a lease, I understand. It's a lease, sir, no changing of hands. It's a lease by the applicant from the landowner.
Okay, I understood that as it was being,
No, no, but
it
that-
ended up being positive, yeah.
But answer your
I didn't know
question?
it was beyond. Yep.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Folks, this is the beginning. Tom?
Yes, Tom Padoa, Warren Highway Surveyor. I noticed that you said that the entrance to the road is approximately 900 feet, and I see a retention basin on the east side of the road. It's looking to me that there's about 300 feet from that retention basin down to Bragg Road. What are the plans for drainage issues in that area?
Do you want me to?
Quickly, Tom, or have them come out and meet you at the office and go over it. You wanna do that?
Yeah, we can do that to move the meeting
Is
along.
that all right?
Fine.
Yeah, you guys can get together, have, you
Yes, sir.
guys can do it that way?
Sure.
And,
I'd like to request the same for the,
Yep.
all the fire provisions, battery storage.
Absolutely.
okay with that? All right? Any others? Remember, this is only one. There's nothing changing hands, oops, wrong words. Yep, property-wise, as far as anything else, there's nothing going on right now, folks. All right, this is a process at the beginning. If you would, please contact those that you feel you shouldn't go forward with what you wish. I would like you to do so. We'll stand fast, we'll continue this once Graves Engineering, Adam Christie, I'll speak to you, once you get your the formats and charts and engineering forms out to Jeff Blake out of Graves and Kathy Paulson tomorrow morning.
Jeff Walsh.
Jeff Walsh, I'm sorry. Jeff Blake. And we don't know when. And we can get that on the road going that way. Sue, you got a question? No. A comment? That be as soon as you can, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, with that, folks, I know there's a lot of concerns and everything is between lawyers and them, and I'm stuck in the middle. But I'm not letting anything go from this town that's gonna try to hurt anybody here. All right, so now I'd like to move on. I have 2 hearings in one time here. So with that one, Adam, thank you, sir. Thank you. Commissioner, thank you. And we'll move right on. Adam, we'll get back to you as soon as Jeff gets that, all right? All right, now, I have an 8 o'clock public hearing for applicant 284, special permit 284 and 285. Didn't I just say that? Look it up. Let's start up with 284 is going up. That's the one coming up. Nick, yes. Nick, would you come in for a minute, please, and your lawyer in front of
That's free. I can
I think I started with Goyette,
Sorry. As soon as Jeff gets back at and Jeff, call us and you. I'm satisfied, we're satisfied, you come. The next one right after that. Nick, if you got a minute to take, please come in. Folks, we're still in process, please. Seaboard, I know we're running 15 minutes behind. If I would have continued by 7:45, 15 minutes over. If you would, I'd like to open, close, and let you guys take a seat for about 15 minutes. We're going to have a quick one here with Bragg. All right, so what I'd like to do is open Seaboard's public hearing 282, 283 with the permission of the applicant. We'll continue it for 15 more minutes, and then we'll put you right on the screen at 8:30. How's that? We saw it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, I can call you.
Coy Hill. What happened? Where are we? How do we do?
We've had, I don't know, as far as like project description and presentation, nothing has changed. Obviously, we've been through multiple presentations. We've gone through the whole Graves report. Really, the only thing kind of looming at the last meeting was the legal aspect of it, the communication between town council.
Yeah.
We have provided from our end, outside of the attorneys, a written memo as to our position here and what kind of we would like to see the process happen. Again, I think you're aware of what's going on. We want to withdraw the special permit, and unless there's a pressing need we'd, prefer to see some action from the board tonight to move this along if that's possible.
Yeah. So, Tom,
Yes.
did you meet, or are you satisfied with what CPT is gonna do on Coy Hill across from Reynolds Road about getting in? The drains, the road?
Yeah, everything from the property pretty much drains away from the road at that location, so there's not a lot of roadway issues with driveway from my standpoint. They'll obviously have to get a driveway permit. We discussed last meeting the, trucks not being on the road for emergency purposes, just staging, there's no room to stage up there.
No, none whatsoever. That little, thank you for that. That little area, when you guys are gonna, if we're going up Coy Hill Road, and you're gonna swing to the right, you got a vernal pond right there too, correct?
There's some wetlands, I believe, to the left,
It's a
right?
vernal
as we
pond to
go
the
down.
right. If you come up the hill and you're gonna swing into that driveway that you have running down, okay? There's a pond right there, it's a vernal pond designated by the state. I'd like one of you guys or someone to go up and take a look at it, all right? Because it is a vernal pond. I know that for a fact from outside, but.
I don't recall it coming up when we were walking through the Conservation Commission, but I can take
Okay,
it.
just take a look.
Sure.
If you're gonna stage up in there.
We have some area, sorry.
No,
excuse
no,
me.
go
We
ahead.
do have some areas for preliminary staging up at the top there, but most of the staging is actually down the road and back up to the hill where after it gets cleared, the material and equipment will be staged out there. There shouldn't be, obviously we know the concern that was brought up at the last meeting with the milk trucks and vehicles going up and down Coy Hill Road. We don't have plans to park trucks on Coy Hill Road. We're gonna get them off the street, make sure they're staged appropriately, work with the fire department, work with the police department to make sure all that stuff's not a problem.
I'll give you a name of the officer the police department asked me, and it'll be Gilbert Wilson. Officer Romani, R-O-M-A-N-I-E, Romani, Scott Romani.
Take the name down.
He's down here, he'll get back here, he knows who to call. Reference that. Did we say, and this came from the custom on the right, just as you're gonna take the left, this is their concern again, and it's quick, about the chipper, or grinder, whatever you're gonna use, long or short. Hours of operations, make sure they know what the bylaw is for hours of
Sure.
operations,
Yep.
okay?
Yep, they'll have a copy
If
of,
they're on
I
off.
would suggest
And it'll be in the decision, it'll be
putting it right in the
the,
decision, and then we'll have a copy of the decision with them with the conditions on it, so that will not be missed.
Mrs. Richardson, do you have questions, please? Mrs. Richardson is the dairy farm up the hill.
I do have, I was able to get a copy of the 10 test pit diggings that went on in this site, and I would like them explained as to why they're acceptable when several of them were aborted and when the depth of saturation on 7 out of the 10 was less than 40 inches. And I was wondering if you could explain to me, that was a year ago and not nearly as wet as it is right now, how those were resolved and why aborted testing is acceptable.
You got the floor. Don't worry.
I don't, so I'm here because obviously we've been through the presentation, we've been through the engineering peer review, Graves has looked at all this stuff, so I'm here as the developer. I don't have an engineer here with me to explain the details of the test pit data, but I know they were reviewed quite extensively through the Conservation Commission process. It may be a wetter year this year, but I don't think that changes the soil types that they found. I'm sure they went to the appropriate depth to make sure they had the readings that are required by the regulations from the state and local Concom bylaws. But that data, I can't speak intelligently enough to explain to you what those test pit logs mean, but just rest assured they were peer reviewed, they were done by a licensed engineer. The Conservation Commission approved them and we've, kind of passed that point at this stage.
Conservation, you have input?
That's incorrect. The deep hole tests, if you remember, were a big point of contention. And it came down to their engineer agreed that they would, in the only basin that's jurisdictional with us, that basin, there'll be a agent from the town will be on site when they start digging the basins, and if there's any weeping located above where the groundwater stated on the plans, then the project will sit for 7 days. If the weeping continues, then the project will have to be stopped at that point, and the stormwater would have to be redesigned to meet the accurate stormwater conditions. The accurate water holes. The question we had with it was, the test pits were all over the place. It appears that they used modeling and not actual groundwater for the groundwater test. The stormwater regulations allow the use of modeling if there's no groundwater present. There were 2 infiltration tests that were done, and in the B layer, they weren't noticed at what depth it was. It just said in the B layer, which was, I believe, 8 to 16 inches. I don't remember off the top of my head. Both of those failed. They were flooded out, so they aborted those. Yet in the same holes, they found groundwater at like 40-something inches. And that was the modeling. So that's where the questions came up. There was a lot of inconsistency back and forth amongst the pits. And that's what we did on our own basin. I don't know what planning board doing with the rest of the basins, because that's out of our jurisdiction. But that one basin, that is how it's gonna be handled.
So to just correct myself, I guess, because I was incorrect saying that the Conservation Commission's peer reviewer reviewed the one jurisdictional basin that fell within, I believe they actually looked at the drainage function of the site as a whole, but when it comes to test pit data, they looked at one. But planning board also hired their peer reviewer who looked at the additional test pit logs and drainage function as well. So it's been through kind of partially through both the Conservation Commission and planning board's peer review process.
Marty, do you have any other questions, Representative?
No, I'm still a little confused. I don't understand how you can just abort it and not make other, suggestions, allowances. And as the planning board, I just am concerned that if there's only one test pit that's under the jurisdiction of conservation, that these other 9 are under somebody's jurisdiction. I'm not sure exactly whom. And I find it interesting that less than 40 inches was saturated in 7 out of the 10.
So
Graves went through all of this information that we've got. That's who we have to depend on. There are engineers, they're the ones that hired to represent. And like he said, someone from the town is gonna be there for that one. And Graves has told us that if we need them, they'll be there when they're doing their basins and everything else. So Graves will be there at different times when they need to be.
They will. That's one of the questions I was asking, is would they be on site for these?
Not all the time, but they will be as needed, because Jeff told us that he would do that.
And who will notify them as needed?
They're gonna have inspections every week.
By?
Graves Engineering is gonna be on site with, in the orders of conditions. They will have a representative once a week or whatever they feel is necessary based on where the project is moving. And they'll be looking at that. With those questions, one, we can make sure they look at this as it goes on. That type of, if there's any more drilling or testing to be done. And 2, I'll hold my comment for a minute. Rich has
I just want to clarify, Sue, our inspection isn't how the basin's built.
No, it's
Our
not
inspection's
how
only gonna be looking for groundwater, because the
Right.
stormwater law says the bottom of the basin's gotta have a 2-foot separation to the groundwater, and that's where the issues will come. If the groundwater is actually higher than what their design is, then the basins probably won't function correctly. So we're not inspecting the construction, only
No,
just
I
groundwater.
didn't mean, I meant the water level.
So,
But Graves will be around. He told us that numerous times.
And they have the authority to cease and desist?
They will have They will have an authority to come back to the board and to the building inspector with the problems that they found. And that'll be carried out, however, either corrected or situations can be looked into further. Okay? it's everything falls out of my jurisdiction into yours and yours into theirs. We're doing the best we can with what we have. That's why Jeff Blake stepped up to the plate about a month ago, a little longer,
Jeff
6 weeks. Jeff Walsh, excuse me. And that is part of the peer review now and has been for a few other sites. So they will be on site or show up on site. And with questions that someone has arose or the board has, they'll work with the engineers on site and or whoever the supervisor is designated, and they'll be looking into it that way for any infractions or standards that are subpar.
Do you happen to know through your plans if these basins are elevated, are raised, and if so, where are they getting that material from?
Yeah, there's normally a berm that's raised around them, and that material comes from on site.
On site?
Yeah, dirt that is moved around from
From
the
the
areas
ledge?
next to them.
From ledge?
Yeah, there's no dirt up there.
We will import clean fill when needed.
Say again?
We will have to import clean fill when needed if the material has, excess debris in it. If it's not clean, we need screen material. So it's an as-needed basis.
Any other questions on this one? We will, all right, my comment will be, I'll get a hold of Jeff tomorrow, Walsh, and just ask him if he looked at this, Kath, a little more, if he looked at the inconsistencies brought up. The question reference inconsistencies, that's all. That's all we'll have to look at there. Any other questions, references here? Yes, Linda?
I just have a question for the engineer. Do you test the ground for electricity outside of the solar facility?
As in like underground electrical, like running through?
Yes, and I'm asking that because there have been issues in other places in the world where they're seeing the effects on grazing animals. And they tested the soil and they found out around the solar facilities that there is high voltage and that the animals are not eating or drinking and they're starving to death and dying. And I'm just wondering if that's something that you as a company test for.
We don't do that. I'm not familiar with the studies that you've seen, but that's not something that we do, just to be, completely transparent about it.
Just go right online and say, cattle dying in France, and you'll find it. And there's, from what I understand, there have been issues in this country that haven't been too publicized, but for those of us that have grazing animals, it's a big concern. I think that
Noted, and it's an issue that can be looked into. Try that. Other than that, any other questions? Chief, you're satisfied? Have you gotten plans from them?
I have plans, like I said, I have to do a sit down.
Right, you have the plans in hand.
Review
All right,
that.
you give the chief a chance to go over it with it.
Yeah,
And
I'm trying
if
to
he
do
has
each
a
one of these
question-
individually, but, take them one at a time.
Yep, that's fine. If you or whoever it may be, give a call and stop down someday. And he's backed up like we are. He's got every plan that we
We
have.
have to go through the building
He's
permit,
got-
electrical permit
Yeah,
processes.
the
when we
highway,
get
everything else. So when you go
opportunity to talk
through,
about it.
I'll give him the courtesy of some time. I know you guys should have finished last week according to you, or wish you could have. It's just the idea.
Yep, no,
We're
there's-
still moving with, trying to keep a constant flow. Anything else? All right, what I'd like to do here, the presentation, a question that Marty had, we'll get an answer for that. Is there a motion to close the hearing at this time, taking no more information from it? We've received everything the applicant has, all the information here.
I make a
Okay.
motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing at this time, Sue?
Yes.
By closing the hearing, folks, we'll take no more information from anybody. We'll take the information that we have, clear that up, and we'll be able to move on from there. Okay, that'll give us the time to review everything, orders and conditions, and get the final process moving on. Is that fair for you?
Sure.
Thank you. Motion made, seconded, please. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
And myself. So at this time, we'll close the hearing on, and I gotta do it the right way. Get my paper. Close the hearing on special permit number 284, 285. Correction.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I knew that was gonna come. Woo! He didn't even have a sleeve in the coat. Woo! Site plan 50 and 51.
52, 53.
One more time. 53, yeah, oh, yeah, I got three of them. 52, 53 at this time, all right? It's closed at this time. Close the hearing on special permit, site, yeah. The site plan,
Yeah, no
52 and
special permit.
53.
I
Now,
just-
CPT Engineering Solutions LLC, Coy Hill Road, okay?
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, now, we'll just move on, fellas. Thank you very much. We'll get things going. All right, continuation, public hearing, special permit.
Driving in the rain, the roads are dark here this time.
282, 283, site plan 5051, Beaman Road Solar LLC.
Have a good night, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah. Assessors map 287. Nick and Pedro, they can come in now, fellas, if you see them out there. You get a nice memo from their lawyer.
Yeah, they're one.
Yeah, their lawyer.
Nice to hear from ours.
The guy's gone out of his way. I mean, he's making $1 million off, but he's gone out of the way, and we're sitting here with nothing from us. How do we do this?
Not your room.
I'm all for that.
Really? Okay. All right, Nick, Adam, Nick and Pedro.
Busy night.
Yeah, you know, yeah, wonderful.
How would council
Sure.
start us off?
Oh, okay.
We've got a letter for you, and I guess have Pedro get it. It just sort of summarizes what we promised we'd do for tonight's meeting.
Oh.
So I'm gonna talk through it briefly, and then I'm gonna provide
sir.
it's actually a package of information, but it's nothing new, just documentation confirming what we said we'd do
Well,
at
we
the
all,
last meeting.
all righty, very good, thank you.
So we had 3 items on our list that we concluded with a few weeks ago. The first was replace the culvert in Cutler Road Extension. You recall that there have been some discussions about that and us committing to do it. Not within our property, but we heard concerns, we saw video, et cetera, so we committed to do that. So we've indicated here that we offered to pay for the design and installation of the culvert. Our engineer and civil contractor will be performing the job in conjunction with your highway department. Tom Boudreau visited the site, sent us some recommendations on what needs to be done exactly. We got quotes from 2 different companies according to Mr. Boudreau's specifications, and we've got included in this package, I'm going to hand you in a moment, both of those quotes, and those have been reviewed by Mr. Boudreau, and he sent an email, which also a copy in this package, agreeing to our budget and confirming that he's okay with these quotes. So obviously that would be something that would be if you see fit to approve the project, would be a condition of your approval, that we would be obligated to do that, and we're happy to do it. We also had a discussion at the last 2 meetings about the ground cover issue, the proposed wood chips. There was a request from some of the neighbors for seeding as opposed to the wood chips, and that comment was echoed by your consultant. So Mr. Walsh had suggested that we use an appropriate seeding mix. This change doesn't affect our drainage calculations. You might remember that we talked about qualifying the area as marsh, and that affects drainage calculations. That's how it had been qualified, and it would continue to be qualified that way if we use the seeding mix as opposed to the wood chips. So it doesn't have any effect on the drainage calculations. And we have an email here from Jeff Walsh as well, confirming that he's okay with the proposed mix that we've got. So he's reviewed that as well, as we promised we'd get done.
Good for you, you got an answer. Yeah, we got it here in the email
Okay.
just now, yeah.
And then lastly, fire department. So Adam Lavoie had reviewed our civil plans and made some comments. We've discussed these comments, remember at our last meeting. We've addressed the comments, and we've been back in touch with Mr. Lavoie, and he's confirmed that he's okay
with our civil plans and our energy storage plans as well. We talked about battery storage and such and having relocated it on the site. And once again, we have an email here from Mr. Lavoy confirming that he's done that and he's okay with it. So we just wanted to try to close the loop as best we could on these various
Thank you.
topics.
Those are the issues that arise, and that's what it's.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. If I could, real quick, I had a previous meeting tonight with the school committee where I ran into Chief Foster on a related thing.
Yeah.
He also stated to me, and I don't know if the gentleman can, but I guess West Brookfield did the same thing that we requested here in Warren with regard to moving the battery storage on their location as well. So he did tell me that tonight. I don't know if he worked out to you guys,
Work out there?
but I believe both jurisdictions are in agreement of where the battery storage will be located at this point and how it was going to be moved.
What's going on from there? That covered everything there. Nick, anything further you got there?
No changes to the design. Essentially, the only thing we talked about from the previous meeting was I coordinated with Jeff Walsh over at Graves and regarding the seating mix and sent him over a spec and he looked at that and approved it. So,
Tom, you're all set?
Yeah, discuss the culvert over the road.
Yeah.
Everything else is out of my jurisdiction.
Okay. That's a big word being passed around in here tonight. What do we got? Go. You got the floor? Let's hear it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, would the board consider the drainage being done conditionally before any of the clear cutting is done?
What do you mean by any of the drainage being done?
We're talking about a culvert going under the road.
Okay.
Could that be a condition that is done before the clear cutting is done, which would increase the rate the water would get to the road? Could that be done first as a condition?
sure. I mean, as discussed at the previous meetings, that's going to be an application made by the town. So that's going to fall on the town's timeline to make the applications to conservation to replace the culvert as part of the project. So essentially what the agreement was, we were going to provide funds for the pipe. So if the town wants to start that process sooner than later, that's up to them.
That's residents, you're the boss, highway boss.
It could be done. I know in the emails that I had with Pedro, it was talked about that the culvert would be installed by that company when they built the farm.
So, okay, the request is through us to Tom and then Tom to Pedro. To have it done prior to the overall beginning of the project?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a
Pedro?
issue with that.
You have to go through conservation and get a permit first.
Correct.
Right, that was the next step.
So
Okay.
I guess the comment that I would make is we're happy to work expeditiously and use diligent efforts. We don't want to be in a position where we're relying or waiting on a third party, namely the town and the permitting process before we can build the project out. So
Understood.
if that project takes a whole lot longer and it's out of our hands because we're not controlling it and we're not the applicant, that puts us in a difficult position. But we're happy to start that process or to work cooperatively with the town engineer and with the Conservation Commission to start that process prior to commencement of construction of the project.
Okay, so what I'm saying now is, that was a request by a town resident through the board to you. You look at Pedro or talk to him outside, then both of you get up, someone contact, I'm not gonna point anymore, out back to conservation and come up with what you're going to do. And hopefully that'll be the process beginning, okay? Because it's still, all right, that's it. Next one. You guys got the floor.
I'm tapped out.
No, you're not.
Again, Mr. Chairman, as a resident on that road, I use it every day, so do the other residents on that road. And again, the concern has always been that the clear cutting of the trees, when we get to that process, if we have torrential rains, the rain is going to get to the road much faster, wash it out. So it's just simply asking for the culvert to go in before that happens, so that the road doesn't wash out.
Okay.
And again, this obviously is an impact on the town. The town would have to come back and fix the road. It's an impact on the wetlands on the opposite side of the road, if the road washes into them. Just trying to avoid all that impact.
Nick, did you or did you not state the other night about the swales along the end of the road. Let's go back to go a couple flips back there. We're trying to, we looked at something about your retention ponds, I'm sorry. Yeah, the direction of water, what would it be? The south retention pond closest to the road. Wasn't there one where we
This one right here, this is
yeah,
the
there
pond
you
closest
go.
to the road. right
The
here.
culvert's gonna go where, Nick? That's a question. Right now.
The proposed culvert that, the.
Everybody's
residents are
working
speaking
on
of.
here, the whole.
Correct, it is right here.
In the wetlands down
So
there.
there's this wetland, we're calling it wetland W.
Okay.
And that drains into a culvert, which crosses the existing roadway.
Okay.
And discharges onto lot 4, and that wetland eventually continues into West Brookfield.
On the lower left, lower right, you've got 3 funnels. I'm gonna call them funnels, triangles, many lines together. Right, what's that? That was the outwash, was it not?
Discharges from the proposed stormwater basin.
Yeah. All right, now going to your stormwater basin up top at the elbow. Aye, sir, right there.
Mhm. That's just an emergency spillway.
Okay.
So that's, riprap.
Yet that corner
Spillway.
being closest to the road there.
Mhm.
What is that on the outside boundary right there? You've got, look like, what we're gonna call contour lines, you're 20.
This distance
No,
here?
let's come on back to the smaller group at the elbow. Keep your
Right.
finger going directly back, right there.
Right here?
Come back a little further. Your
Toward
finger's
you.
gonna come back, towards you.
This
Right in front of that elbow.
Right here?
No, come off the line. Thank you, Adam. I wish I had.
Okay, right here was great.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I'm close. We can do it.
Sorry about that.
No, me. Go ahead. What do we got out there? That's the closest part to the road. How much water or whatever you have in your water retention in that area has the opportunity to reach out to the road? Question.
From this section right here, it would be essentially 0. I mean, this is a emergency spillway
Okay.
that's meant to take water in
Yeah.
excess of a 100-year storm event. So, very rare opportunity for water to be flowing out the basin in this
Okay.
direction. This is a constructed berm down through here, and we have, the way I set the discharges for the proposed basin, I set them as far to the south as possible. I directed this one in this direction, and these have the longest travel path towards the wetland area to kind of keep the water away from the roadway.
That berm it's not considered a swale or anything else. The water's just gonna come off and hit that and then go down. Does it have a depth to it before it comes up to the top of the berm?
The
or is it-
retention basin?
Yeah, that's the retention basin. Jeez.
Correct, it does. It's about 2.5 to 3 feet deep,
Okay.
but it's
I mean,
extremely
that-
large.
By the plan, I mean, I
I
know where we're
understand,
going.
it just seems like it's gonna fill up real quick and
Yeah,
then you
well,
go and.
and then again,
Mr. Chairman, the concern is that if they clear cut this and then
We all-
sometime later that, the funding goes through and then the culvert gets done later, you could have already washed the road out multiple times.
okay.
So we're just looking to get it done.
Yeah, no,
I
you're,
mean, for the record,
Go.
based on the existing contours and where the existing roadway is, I mean, the water would have to travel in excess of 1,000 feet to make it to the roadway along these contours. So along the natural flow path of any water that was gonna be rained or shed from this area, it would have to travel a large distance.
you are responsible for the maintenance of
That is correct, yes.
those retention areas and everything else. All right,
We
and that's
submitted
based on
maintenance
drainage.
plans to Graves Engineering, which were
Yeah.
reviewed.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't look at my left. Go ahead, David, please.
What is the elevation of the catch basin and the end of where they're gonna do this, new pipe? What is the difference in elevations?
Between the
That-
catch basin
Yep,
and where the new pipe's gonna go.
yep.
Let's see. I mean, the pipe is running at about 880 plus or minus, 881. And the bottom of this basin is 921.5.
What does conservation think about this pipe? Is that
About
gonna
the
affect-
culvert replacement? Well, I guess there's a couple of concerns that we have. One of them, like right now, it's about 7 inches, right? You guys said it's about 7 or 8. It's a small
Something like
pipe.
that. 8 inch, yeah.
So it would, in order to properly replace it, it needs to be designed. And it has to follow stream crossing standards, and the chances are it's going to have to, you can't replace it with a pipe, because the pipe that you would need to accommodate the water would make the road go up.
He already has a plan.
Who has a plan?
Tom
No, that was submitted by,
submitted, yeah, it was a design going by his recommendations for the, and they have all the measurements, they have the cost.
Well, conservation doesn't have that yet, Tom?
right, no?
Yeah, it's gotta go through Concom.
Yeah. But I mean, they've already done that part
There
of
is a
it.
plan to submit.
Well, the issue on this, I mean, if it's a stream crossing, there's specific height to width ratios that have to be met. So it makes it pretty difficult if you've only got an 8-inch pipe in order, you know what I mean, to meet it with putting a 10-inch pipe in. You can't put a 2-foot pipe in with it if you only got an 8-inch pipe, because you know what I mean, you're gonna end up raising the road up enough. So, yeah, we haven't seen that at all, so we can't comment on it.
They'll get a copy of it, what you have, Pedro, or what we have.
They will, I mean, there obviously needs to be a complete filing with conservation,
Oh,
so
yeah.
this was not meant as
No,
an
no,
end
no,
all around
this is just a
Concom.
proposal, no.
Just a
This
sketch
is what
plan,
two
give you a
people are
sense
coming
of
up with and saying, hey,
Right. But
Concom's gonna look and say, you're gonna adjust it.
But I think this sort of exhibits the concern that we
I
have,
know.
that it may not be,
Yeah.
oh, we're in and out of Concom in 20 minutes, you know, where do we sign? There may be a discussion that needs to be had, there may be a couple of meetings, so, you know, if it's an issue of the board being concerned with when you'll have the funds, I mean, my client's here whispering in my ear, we'll provide a greater contingency if you want a greater contingency, if you want us to place a check in escrow so you know you have the monies. The concern is only a timing concern, it's not a concern about doing the work or paying for the work.
All right, we got that down.
Yeah.
Right now, we have that. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a concern, because when you're talking about it, it seems like there's gonna be a lot more involved in this than just a pipe being dropped into the road, which I kinda thought was gonna happen. So if there's gonna be a lot more involved in it, I think approving the permit and letting them do their work before that work is done, is gonna put us in a problem, because the road's gonna wash out, it's gonna flood, it's gonna be detrimental to the residents. If the road washes out, we might not be able to get emergency services out there, because again, it cuts us off.
Is it doing that now?
It's at its limit now.
And that's,
Reed Street flooded last week, and we don't have a solar farm, and there's been no clearing
Right.
after the top of Reed Street flooded last week.
and Coy Hill too, where we
Yeah.
are. It's the same in the whole town.
But we're
everywhere.
topping out now without having
Right.
solar put in there. Now, if you don't get that done and it can't be done, and they put the solar facility in there, then we're kinda in a situation here. You know, especially being cut off.
I think we have to go with Graves too, because Graves has
Now,
looked
Can I,
at this, yeah.
can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I hate to bring this up, but I've heard several things about Graves now, and I'm calling in the question of how good they are. Because I've seen in several of these meetings, errors being found, and they've been making it through Graves.
No, he
No,
finds
he's finding them.
Graves finds them.
I don't know.
Yes,
He
Graves
didn't
finds them,
catch
gives
the
us.
grass
Yes.
for the wood chips.
He gave us a list, and then the list goes to these guys. And the grass, that isn't a requirement, that's something that
It seems
can
like
be
we're
or
really
it
focused on
cannot be.
Graves a lot.
That's because we have them as our engineers, and they're the ones that we have to rely on. They're the experts, we aren't, we're not experts in engineering.
There are other engineers out there though.
And we've tried, we've had
Okay.
others, and Graves is, they're the ones that catch things. But like with the grass and the mulch, it's not, you can't do mulch, it's what do you wanna do that's better?
Well, I think that was kind of how they presented it too.
Yeah.
But there's also things going on with the basins, how they were being dug down below the water line. And that wasn't being caught until conservation caught it. Graves should have caught that stuff. They should know that stuff.
I think Graves has caught just about everything and brings them a list.
Yeah, you gotta
I think you're
understand too,
backwards.
that Graves Engineering does not peer review Concom.
No,
You guys
they
have
have
your
their
No,
own.
but
own
they did
peer
finish
review.
peer reviewing
Our
the basins, and they didn't catch.
A lot of stuff.
And then you do have a peer review for yourself too. Concom has a peer review person.
I'm just concerned there's not
Ours is
enough.
only jurisdictional though, we don't,
Yeah.
we don't do
Derick.
stormwater.
Right.
Derick, please.
What I would do is start the process with conservation, show them the problem, and then they will give you the answer, what they need to get that fixed. Then they can apprise it, and they can show it to them, and this is what we need to fix that. If you get it with conservation, they'll get to know the problem, they'll tell you what they want, because like he said the other day, it looks like that's doing what it's supposed to do, retaining the water before it goes to the side of the road. Might that satisfy conservation? We don't know. Ask them, go with them, have them show you what they would like to have, and then you can show them, this is what we need to fix it.
So are you asking residents to put an application
No.
in with Concom? I'm sorry, what are we supposed to be doing exactly?
Just engage them, right?
What I'm trying to
Okay.
is get it started. They don't know about it. They don't know have they seen your video? Have they seen?
We do know about their concerns. We are waiting for an application from the highway department or from Beam and Solar, or whoever. We're waiting for somebody to submit an application for the culvert replacement.
Mr. Chairman.
No, yeah,
That's okay. You were thinking.
no, yeah, thank you.
So
I understand the request by conservation. You guys have worked it out, that can get going as soon as possible.
That was going with process with design, and
Yeah.
my waiting point was to find out that this whole process gets approved before we deal with the culvert. Hence, the request tonight certainly changes that. But as of right now, the design and everything goes through that should adhere to the stream crossing guidelines as stated, so there's been no paperwork filed
Yeah.
because there's been nothing approved yet.
Okay, with that. Bob, any questions?
Yeah, I do, I have a couple of concerns. I agree with the resident on my left. I don't think that any site clearing should be done on this site until the road is fixed. I've seen the road get washed out before, and I agree with him. If we clear cut the land and we get a big rainstorm, you're gonna be fixing a road. That's gonna be a lot more costly than putting a pipe in. So my opinion is that this work has to be done. So I would ask the highway department to expeditiously get their application into Concom with whatever plan you have and get a game plan together so that this company can work on the road. I would also maybe ask because I like to try to bring something to the table with my concerns. What's the possibility of building the basins first to protect the area in case the road culvert can't be put in prior to the clearing of the land? Or to clear only a portion of the land to put the basin in? In other words, quelling the concerns of the town residents rightfully to protect the road from being washed out. I don't know how that works in your construction plans or if it can, but I'm asking you to look at that and maybe try to help us understand what can be done if we can't get through Concom and get a plan designed to fix the road prior to your construction. I understand the dates and the plans running out, I get all that. And I know you wanna get in that queue and get and I wanna help you get there. But I have grave concerns about this road in particular because it is the only road into that neighborhood. If it gets washed out, they can't leave their homes by a vehicle. Okay, so that's a problem for me. And that's it. So if that helps you out any in trying to get this moving for you, I'd be glad to listen to that and try to work with you to get that done. But contention would be to agree with the resident, the road has to be fixed first before land clearing starts, unless we can find an alternative route to travel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Derick?
How you go, Bob?
So, what do you get this?
The previous, I don't know which it was tonight, somebody was here, and they said that they were gonna do their retention basins first, for their,
That was,
yeah, that's what
Angelo.
they were gonna do them.
I'll get that.
Yeah, they were gonna do them first, and then that would, before they started the other part, so maybe, yeah.
So on the plan, we have included in the design set an erosion control plan, and we're also gonna be filing for a NIPD's general construction permit. We'll have an associated stormwater pollution prevention plan that goes along with that permit. But, and these items are included in the design. This basin is designed or specified to be rough graded. We're not gonna dig it down to the exact bottom because there'll be sediment and silt going into here, so we don't wanna dig it out to the final grade, but it is called out for to be rough graded. The pipes will not be put in, the discharge pipes, but there will be a spillway, an overflow spillway, and that will act as a temporary sediment basin. Once the site is in the process of being constructed and generally stabilized, they'll excavate the bottom of the basin out, finish construction on the detention basin, have the discharge outlets put in, and then the basin will be functioning as it's supposed to be. But initially, it will start off as a temporary sediment basin.
And that's gonna help me?
Correct, yes.
Because that's what I really want to hear in this,
Yes,
in this conversation, is that,
Yes,
that's gonna help me.
that-
And I need you, not to put you on the spot, but I need you to explain how that's gonna help us versus a full basin, so that my residents here can understand what protection they're gonna have if we can't get this culvert fixed before the project starts.
So essentially, this area that's draining towards this detention basin will continue to drain towards there during construction, and will go into the basin, and that will slow the water down. It'll allow for sediment to settle to the bottom, and then water will escape through a constructed spillway, temporary spillway, in the basin. So it'll act like
So it won't actually be
it won't be a full
attenuating the
basin, but it'll be
flows
about
back to where it's supposed to be.
75% capacity of the designed final basin.
Okay.
And then we'll also have other erosion controls, erosion control fence. We have additional sediment control barriers as recommended by Graves Engineering, about every 100 feet on these steeper slopes. That'll kind of act like check dams, so the water's gonna hit a layer of hay bales and silt fence, kind of slow down, and then go down another 100 feet, hit another layer, hay bales, silt fence, slow down, and continue on.
In
its
hopes that
path.
some of it will imperviate the
And-
land
yeah,
and
correct.
filter
Drain into the
itself,
ground
so
and
that
slow
you're not
down.
getting the whole
Yep.
rate into the basin.
That's correct, yes. The goal is to slow the water down. That's the real goal when
pretty much
doing
ledge
these
up
types of
there.
things. So you don't get that
Pretty much
erosion.
ledge up there.
Yeah.
Same exact thing, just has the notes that call for the basin being used as a temporary sediment basin. It's shown on sheet C-2.2 that goes along. And these are the additional erosion control barriers, as I described, kind of running between the arrays at about every 100, 150 feet to slow that water down as it's coming down the hill.
So just as a general question, what do you do if you hit ledge somewhere and you can't get your depth?
In the basin?
Wherever, yeah.
Well, in the site in general, we don't have a lot of cuts and fills, very minimal, just minor site grading to cut the roadways in and get those to be gravel. And, as we discussed before, everybody knows it's an area of high groundwater, so we're not really excavating these basins down 5 or 6 feet, a couple of feet, and then we're constructing a berm on the backside to create the impoundment. So we're not digging a hole, 5 or 6 feet deep where you may hit ledge. We're only coming down a couple feet and then creating an impoundment.
So you're
on the
basically
front
putting the
side.
berm on top of the ground, if you.
Correct, yes, we're gonna have a constructed
Like you
berm
would a leach
on this
field,
side.
build a mound.
Correct, yes. But a constructed slope with, properly compacted, with, using the proper soils to construct a slope like this with a little bit more silty material, so it holds well.
Rich, you had a question, a statement? One of you did.
I did. During construction, the basin, as a temporary basin, you have, will you have pumps on site, and how will you clean the water out when you pump it out? You can't have the water overflow during construction because it will be turbid water, and that would go to the wetlands that are down gradient. So I'm assuming that you would have some type of flock logs or a pump or something before it actually overflows.
In this situation, we have a constructed spillway at a higher elevation, so the water would impound and then crest the spillway through the rock berm, as we said before.
Oh, you have that during construction?
During construction, correct.
But the
And as
water,
we stated before, it's a very shallow basin. So, once this thing fills up a couple feet, and we're not excavating completely to the bottom of the proposed basin because we don't want to get that area full of sediment. So, the temporary sediment basin in this situation is going to be about, 2.5 feet deep. Then we're going to have the spillway. And then, so, any flows will be able to settle down any sediment that comes out, and we will have the spillway, and then beyond the spillway, we're gonna have our perimeter erosion control, fence, stake tape bales.
well, I guess the question more of, if it's a shallow basin, only a couple of feet, it's not gonna take much water to fill it up. How much land is gonna go in that? How much drainage is gonna go in there? Quite a bit.
It's big. How big is it?
So if it fills up quite quickly, and are they pretty permeable soils or are they tight soils?
C&D soils, so no, they're not, it's not sandy
So
material.
not very good, so the water's gonna stay there for a long time, so if we get a long storm like we've been having now, and it's full of sediment, the water that goes in there, the water that comes over the spillway is gonna be, that's what she's talking about, it's gonna be dirty water. So do you have any type of plan, so if it's full of water and there's rain coming, do you plan on pumping this out, and somehow when you pump it out, are you gonna pump the water through flock logs or something to make sure you have, meet the clean water coming out of the construction basin?
At this point, we don't have any details of that nature. If those issues do arise, we will address those during construction. We will not be discharging any sediment-laden water towards the wetland areas. As I said before, we have the temporary construction settling basin. We have the constructed riprap outlet as the discharge for that. We feel that the basin size for a temporary sediment control basin is sufficient with regards to the depth below the crest of the weir. And if we do have our issues noticed during construction, we'll address those at that time.
Well, isn't it kind of putting a little bit late once it's already going over the top, shouldn't we address it before we start? I mean, we had 2 inches of rain the other night, and, stuff like that, it could be an issue, I mean.
Pedro, you
I
have
was
a
just
comment?
yeah, we
Okay, please.
for all of our sites, we keep a pump, just in case. So
Pump
we
on
can,
site,
we
so
can make,
what other
we can make a
thing
condition that we're gonna go inside to address these scenarios.
Now, you wanted further comment on this, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just in roughing out, looking at the size of this basin, and then looking at the area that flows into it, it seems that it's around a 20-to-1 ratio, as far as the footprint, looking at that. Now, this has tapered sides as well, so it will hold even less than its footprint. So when it comes to something like 2 inches of rain, if you get 20 times that going in this, it is gonna go over the emergency spillway in great volumes. So the concern again is, if this is clear cut and this site has a heavy rain, it's gonna go right in this temporary basin and right back out, and then just right to the wetlands and then flood the road. And then all that silt and everything goes right across the street, ruins the one wetland here, goes across and ruins the one across the road. and I can't get to or from my house.
There's a million ifs and what ifs.
Correct,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
as you stated, I mean, we design in accordance with stormwater management standards. As I stated before, we're gonna be under a NIFTY's general construction permit. We're gonna have a stormwater pollution prevention plan in place that requires weekly inspections. We'd be more than happy to submit those to the board, or the board's agent to review those inspections. So the site is reviewed for stormwater, construction, and erosion control compliance on a weekly basis. If there's a large storm event in excess of a 1/4 inch of rainfall, an inspection is required. So the tools are here to prevent sediment and erosion, sedimentation and erosion from construction. If things need to be added or adjusted during construction, that's why you have your stormwater pollution prevention plan as required by your federal NIFTY's general construction permit. Things will be modified, additional erosion controls will be used. We have a provision here in this clouded area. If we do have an excessive amount of rainfall or this sediment basin can't handle what's going towards it, as the first erosion control measure for a sedimentation basin, we're saving this area here for a secondary erosion control basin in this area right through here, if needed. It's not assumed that it'll be needed at this point, but we have provisions on the plan. It's even noted that this area will be utilized for an additional temporary sedimentation basin if needed. And there's a calculation that goes along with how to size this properly on the erosion control plans in accordance with stormwater standards.
Every applicant gives us one of these and more. Okay? They get one, conservation. You want one, you can have one. This is their stormwater management report. They base it on a bazillion different fundamental graphs, designs, figures. You might be a professor in management, you might be a mathematician, you might know better, and you know a lot better than I am, sure. But when you look at it all, it's all based on what they do, what they look at. There are hypotheticals put in here, there are fudge factors put in, and there's swag put in there. Everybody knows swag, right? Scientific wild ass guess, because everybody uses it, all right? That's a fudge factor built into everything, even your house and your drains from your septic, okay? We get it, we look at it, and it goes to Jeff. Jeff Walsh has been trying to do the best he can. You don't have to like him, I don't have to like him. We go out to engineering firms, they come back. We hire the one that fits, all right? You can question anybody, your boss, the people that work under you. We all have the right to do that. When it comes down to it, we want to protect what we have. We all have our homes and or our properties. They're saying that this is what's going to happen. Conservation looks at it. They figure it out. Then they throw it back to us. Jeff looks at it. They can baffle us with you know what? Get the numbers add up. Mrs. Richardson and I went down to Holden. I called Holden, she went down there. And that's where farms have to go to get all their properties before they can even cut a pasture, okay? And everybody down there looked at a lot of the numbers prepared by 2 other sites. They couldn't even question what was going on because they were right spot on based on what's there. We can go out and get other engineers. You want to be protected, we want you to be protected. He wants you to be protected, the guy at the end, and the guy next to him wants you to be protected. They don't want to end up with more problems. So when it all comes in, they put it together as a plan, and anybody can pick a plan apart. Where do you stop? I'm not stopping, we're not stopping you. Those are questions. Conservation's gonna look. Nick has done a good job, Pedro's done what they have. And where do you want to go? Where do we go? Answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, all I'm asking for is that the road, the culvert under the road, or whatever it turns out to be, gets resolved before the clear cutting. And I think that's a reasonable request. so
Without
that
a
we
doubt, we're
prevent
not
the
saying
road
it's
from
not,
happening.
we're battling a lot of things here.
Oh.
Tom's gonna do his best, they've got numbers, figures and everything else, they don't want it, and we're not gonna let it go until they look at it out in the back row here.
Of course.
Okay, so we got that, we can't beat a dead horse, all right? Water's gonna go where it goes, we all know that, don't come to my house. Don't come to my house now, okay?
A little bit of water?
No, I don't have a road,
No.
and I'm saying it right to you, I don't have a road, and Tom knows it. All right, I got nothing up there. Worse than you've ever seen down there. I've been living here longer than you, and I've been down that road a million times.
Fair enough.
Okay? You've never had it where I live, and that's on the top of the hill, all right? So plain and simple, they're gonna do it, we're gonna get it done. We have time frames also, and that's a very unfortunate thing. Days, minutes, and hours. And when we open, we gotta close, we gotta have decisions, we gotta have it, or else I meet more lawyers again, okay? In anything. But, we understand that, conservation knows what the process is. Nick, I got one.
What's up?
Right now in this town, there are 3 logging companies, 2 of them are shut down. They're shut down by the towns that they're in, like their conservation commissions. And one other was just shut down Saturday afternoon at the squad. Too wet. Too wet. Their skidders, everything they had was left in place by the towns. Town agents went out and shut them all down. There's skidders sitting out there, the cutter fellas over there, 2 foreigners full of logs coming in and just sitting there. How is your where is your logging company going in? You gotta know that because you work with them. These are just questions that came about quickly for everybody's point.
They're gonna be
But the highway superintendent, the abutters, and then how they, where they go, they're gonna come up Cutler Road and take a left onto Beaman, correct?
Correct. Come down Coy Hill Road off of Route 9.
Yep.
You're gonna come on to Beaman Road in West Brookfield, past this lot right here, and the entrance to Lot 1, which is in West Brookfield, is right here. So the only access to Lot 3 is through Lot 1.
Okay?
So they're gonna be coming in this way. Lot 1 will be cut, stumped, and worked first, and then the logging company will, the driveways will be rough graded, and they'll continue down to Lot 3. So access will be from the north, from Lot 1 in West Brookfield.
Okay. Do you have a login deck set up for them? Or is that up to the company when they come in? Pedro.
That'll be up to the company.
They're up to it.
Yeah, when we submit our application for the building permit,
Yep.
we're also gonna submit a specific construction phase that the fire department, the highway department have to sign out before we move a phase.
Okay. With that, the reason these fellows were cut, 2 of them, one of them was shut down is their proximity to the roads, and 2, as you know, when a skidder comes back out, some of them, well, I know a couple of them, the height of the room, I've seen the ass end of a skidder halfway down trying to haul, okay? Then your 18-wheelers is continually spinning around. I guess I can say make sure they got hay bales, they should have hay bales out, impact on the water coming out of that place, and on your south end going towards Beaman Road, when they start cutting down the edges and everything along that road, is they're gonna go in and clear cut because they can cut anything they want, and that's what it's gonna be. Even the distance back, 120, 150 feet, is not gonna stop any mud and stuff coming down into water and into areas that could be potentially wet areas to lead across the road. Hay bale it and have them do something to make sure the company understands that they're gonna do it, because that could be a project right now that can be shut down. Alright, we can shut down through the permitting, the highway department, and the building codes for cutting, alright? They get a permit to cut, they're gonna clear that right out. And anything they're moving out is gonna lead to a heck of a lot of mud if in fact it does go in the next few weeks or whatever the case may be. It's just gonna be water going anyplace. So we would like to make sure they understand that area is gonna be all bailed up The day they come in and drop off machines, they stop bailing the whole perimeter down to the road specific. That's, you know, can be addressed by them, okay? And that keeps the road somewhat taken care of, because these guys are out of work at least for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I just have one actually in
Adam,
regards to that.
sure.
So, the initial phase, I understand that's in West Brookfield jurisdiction, that initial phase, but obviously the equipment isn't gonna be stored on the road for, you know, access purposes.
Correct.
But is there, as they're around the road, are there requirements for detail officers or anything at this point? I'm just curious, during the initial beginning of cutting, in case there's an ambulance call, in case there's a fire call, you know, we can contact the officer, let them know we're coming. Is any of that been worked out? I'm not saying it's necessary, depending on the way they're doing it, but if they are working right on the road and there's equipment right on the road, has that conversation been had with the police department?
I was just gonna say, that one of the conditions that we have in the special permit for West Brookfield is that we cannot park any equipment on the road. And the other condition that we have on the special permit West Brookfield that we'll have to coordinate with the police department in case, like I said, we're gonna be doing a construction phase, and then the police department, you guys are gonna have comments on it. If we're gonna need to have people on call there, they will be there.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
if there is gonna be officers up there during certain parts, that we'd be able to communicate with them, and we would know that they were gonna be there in case there was a call.
Yeah, no, you know, I understand, like I said, we told the town of Springfield that was what we were going to do, and they put us a condition just to cut the matter there.
Dave, any other questions, fellas? You sure? Right, 'cause right now, with the information brought forth and everything together, with the permitting reference to culvert, and Tom Pedro and whatever conservation.
Mr. Chairman, like I said, just until this meeting started, I was
Yeah.
under the impression, as I'm sure most of you were, that this was still a ways away from being permitted to actually start.
Well,
We're still a few months
yeah, but with that, I mean, considering that, and do you have any other abutters that have any other questions there?
No.
Now that come forth, because you fellows have brought a lot of the concerns forward for everybody here. Okay,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, I did meet a couple of times with Peggy, because she called me on my cell phone, because she couldn't get into the meeting, so I did go there and she had a few comments, so we addressed them as well.
Okay, all right, and then we have the permit. Graves is, Marty had a question for Graves, we want to get into.
That was
not this.
also-
Yep, that was, with that, the information given and the information taken concerns pros and cons. Is there a motion to close this?
I make a motion to close this hearing.
All right, the motion that's been made and seconded is reference to hearing being closed, at which time all information obtained from the applicant, the abutters, and questions asked by the board, pros and cons, is closed. All right, go.
Before you close, if I could.
Sure.
Since this may be my last opportunity to speak.
Oh dear.
So
That's on film.
we've talked a lot about the public roadway.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that that's going to be a condition of some sort, but I just want to sort of get my position on the record now, because this is challenging. I've dealt with this with other projects where we've had a private roadway that maybe bisects a project. And if it's a private roadway and we own property on either side, we own to the center line, we can do as we please with the roadway, and the board can condition it as it sees fit. We're sort of boxed in here with it being a public roadway, so we're fully able to commit to the culvert pipe and to working with the Conservation Commission and working with town staff. The challenge becomes if the condition is structured in such a way that we're bound by particular guidelines or deadlines over which we have no control. If you obligate us, for example, to ensure that that culvert pipe is in before we begin the clearing of the site, and we're unable to work cooperatively with your town staff because they take longer than expected, or Conservation Commission's review takes longer than expected, that's problematic for us because we're not the driver. It's a public roadway. It's outside of our jurisdiction. It's outside of our control. We can't even seek the permit if we wanted to seek the permit because we don't own the roadway. So I just want to get on the record that we're willing to commit as much as we possibly can as somebody who has no ownership interest in the roadway to provide the funding, to provide additional funding in the form of a contingency, 20%, 30%. You can increase it from what we proposed. We're glad to provide the funds to be held in escrow in advance, so you can be certain you've got them. But in terms of the process itself, that's something we don't control. And I think that a lot of this discussion about the culvert pipe has been premised on the concept that without the pipe first being fixed, this all falls apart. And I've not been out there. I can't tell you that I have firsthand knowledge. I don't live in the neighborhood like these gentlemen do, so they know what they see. What I can tell you is that I've not seen any of the documentation from our consultant or from Graves, the statement that if the culvert pipe isn't fixed first, this all falls apart. In fact, quite the opposite. This stormwater and drainage design was reviewed and it was confirmed that this ought to function as it's been designed. Now, that's based on guesstimates or whatever acronym you used.
SWAG.
There you go, SWAG. So I understand that that's, it's a science. And does every project that complies with that science ultimately function the way that it ought to? No, not every project does. It's based on the list of assumptions, and we hope that it will, but that's why we've got our consultant, that's why you've got your peer review consultant. So we're glad to commit as much as we can, but I just want to be very clear about what we can't commit to, which is a process over which we have no control because we don't own the roadway.
You mentioned clearing. You mentioned clearing and starting. First of all, you got to get a logging company here to clear that whole area. So there's 3 weeks to 4 weeks anyway.
We're months out.
We're months
Okay,
away.
we're not. Oh, geez, I like that. But we're not worried about that part. I mean, once that starts, all they got to do is the boss has got to the highway. Excuse me, the cutting company's got to see the highway boss, let them know we're going in here. So there's a process there. That, no?
They're going in from West Brookfield.
Oh, yeah, very good. Well, let's see the guy over there. That process can go. There's your clearing there. The next step would be the construction site, if and when everything goes the way it's going there. So I can only say with the process, Pedro and Tom going to conservation, I don't see months down the road. And that gives you the opportunity to get your ducks in order and get everybody lined up, which I'm sure they're all chomping at the bit now to get in there. So I don't see a process going that long.
I agree 100%. Like I said, I honestly don't think we're probably gonna put the culvert before the construction. That's probably what's gonna happen. Like I said, this comment was brought up last meeting.
Yep.
2 days later, we're going there with.
Yep, and I see that going on
Yeah,
after
we're
tomorrow
gonna-
or whatever too.
Exactly.
Between you two.
So we're gonna do this as fast as we can. Nick is gonna provide design, our civil contractor can be there even before construction. If we don't start construction like 2 months after that, he can come in there and do the culvert. That's not a problem.
As long as we understand each other in conservation.
Correct.
You know, there might be hiccups there, but you guys are
We'll work on it.
adults and you can address the issue there. This process here, that's why we wish to close it now, so we're
Correct.
moving this process. Tom?
Right, the only issue I have with that is I know it's an 8-inch pipe there, I recommended an 18 to 20-inch elliptical pipe.
Okay.
Not knowing for sure if that was the stream crossing guidelines. They sent it back with their design, I'm just putting it out there that I'm not sure if
Yeah,
that's.
you two will take that design
Correct.
to the next
Correct.
department. That next department's gonna tell you, yes, no, maybe, I don't know. But that's the process. So you guys got
Right,
yours
yeah, no, it's-
left and right. Now you go up there to meet the other hand, okay?
Just wanted to make
We'll go
that
there.
clear that
No,
this
that's
was
fine here.
recommended from design engineers coming to me,
Yeah.
based on kind of what I saw.
That's what it's about.
I figured they wouldn't be designed unless it abide by the stream crossing
Right.
guidelines.
In reality, after doing this long enough, everybody on this end has seen that the engineers always try to meet and either be a step above the standards 98% of the time. They're not gonna shortcut because they get caught in the other end. All right, there was a motion.
I have one more question though before we go,
You
please.
can do that.
This is for Chief Lavoy. Chief, could you just think for a moment and tell me, do you have any in your mind as a fire chief in the town of Warren, safety concerns for the residents on Cutler Road after this facility is built, if an emergency situation should arise?
Well, I think we addressed the main concerns with regard to, again, this is the first project, in a couple of ways, this project is different than all the other ones we've dealt with. Number one, it's multi-jurisdictional, so that in itself leads to some, I wouldn't say problems, it just, everyone has to be on the same page, and I think we've talked a lot about that. The highway department in West Brookfield has to know what the highway department in Warren's doing, the fire department in West Brook, we all have to be on the same page on that. So that was one hurdle to get over. The other hurdle was, or the other concern that I had and Chief Foster had in West Brookfield was this was also unique because it was a one-way in, one-way out scenario. So again, that is why we looked at the battery storage. We still have work to do on that in terms of suppression systems and that will all be worked out under building code and Jack's office and everything. But we're much more comfortable with them being moved where they've been moved. And just on the worst case scenario, there is an issue for some reason that we need to get the residents out of the area.
Can you get them out? I
Yes,
guess is
yes,
my
we would
bottom
be able
line.
to get them out. Again, after hearing tonight, I'm not a stormwater person, that's above my pay grade, and I'm not trained in that. I do have concerns, the same concerns with if there is a road washout. Certainly, access is a primary thing. So I certainly am on board with what sounds like is being proposed this evening, that everybody works together collectively, we get that culvert in and everything. Because again, I don't understand the numbers, these are, engineering numbers, but catastrophically, if something happens and that road is washed out, then these folks would be put in harm's way. So if we can avoid that right off the beginning, right off the start, and get this done, in a time frame that works for all parties, then I think that's in our best interest, absolutely. So, so I guess that those would be my immediate concerns, is to protect the roadway, for them to get in, for us to get out, them to get out, us to get in, and to make sure that, if the storage issues and stuff like that are far enough off the road to make sure that we can, we can deal with the situation.
Bottom line, fire, flood, road washout, we can get our citizens out of there in
Correct.
an emergency if we need to.
Yeah, as long as we take the steps, I think, that have been identified here, I think we would be able to do that, yes.
One more question, Mr. Chairman, for the applicant. So it was my intention in the condition of orders to talk with the board and absolutely do what your attorney does not want done. No building, no clear cutting till the road is done. However, I am willing to back off of that, understanding the situation that you're in. Are you willing to take responsibility if the road washes out during clear cutting and the culvert hasn't been replaced? Are you willing to rebuild the road to whatever limit needs to be done so that these residents can get in and out of it?
Yeah.
And if you are, then I'm willing to back off on my order just to say that we need to make our best effort to make this happen.
And we just need a commitment from the town, if that were to need to occur, that we would have a license to enter the public roadway and make the repairs if the intent was to have us do it. I mean, this is the challenge with the multi-jurisdictional nature of a public roadway running through two private properties.
I don't know what licenses are involved to do that, but I
Right of
wouldn't have
entry.
an issue.
Just the right of entry, permission to gain entry so that we can fix the
You would
road.
need
It's just
to give them permission to fix the road.
Yeah, we can do it.
All of a sudden something happens. You got everybody up here, and that road washes out, they're gonna come in and fix the road. And you're gonna say, no problem, because I'm up here, or whatever. That's all, that's what it comes down to. Nick, you had a comment.
So just for the record, as part of our special permit approval in West Brookfield, I mean, we have a condition that says the roadway needs to be open 24/7. It can't be shut down. If it washes out, it's on the applicant to make those repairs immediately, coordinate with the highway department, and just ensure that the roadway is continually passable. So the town of West Brookfield is also taking those protective measures with regards to the roadway for their section for Beaman Road up here. So that was included in our special permit approval from town of West Brookfield.
Perfect, thank you.
That's understandable.
Thank
Bob, that satisfied?
Yes, I would only ask, Mr. Chairman, that we can direct Kathy to get a copy of those decisions from West Brookfield on their special permit. You say you already got it, right? So
Yeah,
their
we can
condition-
provide a copy.
Or if the applicant wants to provide those with that, that's fine. We'd just like to look at what they're doing and maybe mirror it so it's more common and you're not dealing with two different jurisdictions and two different rules.
Makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, having been at that meeting, I believe what they were saying is they would not park equipment on the road, nothing about repairing the road.
We'll find out.
It's in the document.
It's in the document.
Okay.
We'll get it.
I didn't get a chance to read the document, I only had a chance to go to the meeting. And at the meeting, it was talked about.
We'll supply the document, it'll be a public
I
record.
can supply this hand.
We'll give you a copy.
Send me an email?
Afterwards,
Thank
when
you.
they're doing the other conditions.
I'll make sure
For the
Mr.
record,
Shea
both
gets it
items
too.
are included in the decision. So absolutely no parking of construction vehicles
Right.
on the roadway, and it's on the applicant to keep the roadway open at all times.
I have one question now.
everybody has different, ideas of what immediate is. What is immediate to you for responding to a road washout? Is it as soon as the rain stops, you guys are in there fixing it, or is it like 3, 6, 10 days away?
Well, our civil guys are gonna be there, so there's no reason for them not to do it right away.
Okay, what if it's a weekend? They're not working on weekends, right?
Well, but the equipment will be there, like all those guys will be on call.
Okay, so the town will just give you a call and get your butts down here, fix the road?
There's gonna be a emergency signage in the front of the gate.
And you'll have a pre-construction conference, won't you, with staff?
Correct.
Mhm. Provide 24-hour contact info
Correct.
and so forth, so you'll have that.
I'll guarantee that myself and Tom would also be on the phone immediately, making sure that.
So I know you guys are on it, so.
No, I'm just saying, that, no, I mean, in all seriousness, that's a major issue, so all the heads would be talking to get.
We're just really concerned with that, as we
I
expressed,
understand.
I got young children.
No, absolutely.
Um,
I'm very.
There's elderly people there, you know, we got Peggy there, and
Oh, yeah.
other people with medical needs.
I will also add that Adam and I have had the privilege of dealing with some floods since we've both been here.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Beavers are not been kind. In this town.
No, you know, it doesn't take much to have a problem.
No.
And we just wanna make sure everything is, you're gonna have a bump in the road, but you don't wanna
My
50
son's
foot
road
garage.
washed out this week.
Yeah.
Joaquin.
Nick?
And so just to kind of reiterate what we'll be doing, I mean, as I said, we'll be having those weekly inspections, which we're more than happy to provide copies to anybody who's looking for a copy of those, so. So we're hoping that we're not gonna have, you know, a 500-year storm event where something tragic could happen. It can happen, but the goal is to identify problems before they happen. So if we see, okay, water's channelizing down this one section right here, it seems to be getting to that roadway, maybe we do a small temporary sediment basin and kind of divert the water around. So it's a large site, it's a large open area, it's gonna be cleared. There's no game plan you can set into place a year before it's built. These are things that need to be monitored constantly, and we'll make changes on the fly if something's not looking right or not working right, but the goal is to prevent those issues before they happen.
So getting back to it, we've had that, you're raising, we're here, is there a motion to close?
Mr. Chairman, I am all set, and I reassert my motion to close, site plan, is it a site plan? Yeah, this one's a site plan?
Special permit.
Special permit? Oh, man.
All right.
Number 50 and 51 for, Beaman Road Solar LLC and WA Farms Development LLC.
I second it.
Second. Everybody's had their input, the board's taken all the information, the applicant supplied all the information, highway and fire, and the abutters with all the information supplied, taken in and talked about. We still have an opportunity to talk amongst ourselves. Motion made, seconded, all in favor to close the
Aye.
meeting at this time at 9:34.
Aye.
Aye?
And aye. Okay? With that, we'll get that permit going. And give us a couple weeks to get us going, and we'll get right back to you with that. Because we've gotta come up with that decision process, the whole permit, the writing of it. Kathy's gotta sit down, get it all put together. And then, go ahead.
So my only question is, will the board vote tonight, so we have a sense as to whether it's an approval
No,
condition?
we're
or
not
you're
until,
going- until you
we
have a
meet
decision?
one more time to talk about everything. We taken left and right, put it all together, make sure we understand where it is, and then we'll make a vote. You'll be notified of the vote, and the decision process will move on from there, no longer than 2 weeks.
Okay,
Okay?
so you'll be meeting again within the next 2 weeks, and will we get notice of that meeting?
Kathy?
No, we're not, it won't be done in 2 weeks.
Okay. That's where everything goes at that end.
Okay.
Right, and it's a backlog.
There's another one right before you.
Yeah,
We just closed another one tonight,
No, I know you
too.
did.
so, all right, I just
And
brought
we
up.
still need some info coming back to us, so.
You're waiting on info, because the hearing's closed, right?
Well,
Just a
yeah, but the
question.
information would be based on Tom and
Okay.
conservation, that's all that is.
Okay.
It is closed, it's information that's out there that we have been discussing. It's not gonna make a major decision, but it's between the town and you folks, and you've all agreed. So when that'll be part of it. Yet, that decision comes back and then Kathy has to get the process going. And that is the way it is in that office. When you only got 12 hours a week,
Yeah, no, I get it.
okay, I don't, when I'm not bleeding
just
about
lost
it, but
3.
whining.
So I'm gonna push the issue and ask the next question only because we've got deadlines on our end.
I'm
Just
sure you
trying
do.
to,
I'm sure you do
these
too.
subsidies
Yeah.
don't wait.
And we're not trying to
looking
stop
at
a
it in terms of
deadline, we don't even know where it's going,
When we might be
so.
back before the board.
Yep,
Well, you can still discuss amongst yourselves.
yeah, we got, the meeting.
And they're gonna
after-
let me know what I
Yeah.
need to write in this decision. It's
Okay,
not
right.
me writing the decision, they're telling me
Yeah.
what to write.
So does that have to happen tonight? Does that happen
No.
in a future meeting?
No, it'll probably happen within the next 2 meetings with no problem, next 2 Monday nights.
Okay.
We'll set aside that time to discuss it, and we'll let Pedro know as soon as we get to do it, how's that?
We
have to
appreciate
vote.
that.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, probably the following day, once Kathy types
Gives
it
me
up,
some time
we'll get it out to you.
to.
Okay?
That's great.
All right, so this one is all set. All right, thank you very much, folks. Those of you that are here for the, what's next?
Minutes. And then I'm going home to bed, 'cause I have to get up at 5. How are you?
Thank you for your time. Be in touch. Take care, guys.
Just want to thank everybody for all this. Thank you very much.
Don't worry, we'll take care of it. We'll make sure that
I know you're there for us, so.
I'm really concerned.
Especially the medical.
Someone at the house, tree falls on.
And we need family get We'll make sure. So much different than that. We'll just go right to the bus. I'm gonna keep residents that are basically landlocked by just one driveway in and out. And if it washes out or there's a problem, at the same time, you know, he falls off a ladder, goes in his gutter, he's got a broken leg on the ground. We need to get an ambulance, you know, the residents are more important than anything. We'll make sure that they.
Thank you very much. Keep going. Good night.
I don't know, that's why. We'll contact them and ask them what to
But that's.
Derick, so really, we just need Bob, you and Derick for the minutes. Did you have an opportunity to review?
There's a few different areas of carbon base that we need to go over, and I think it'll be a little longer than.
So we'll disregard the minutes?
Yep.
And I'll go over with you before I leave, like, simple stuff, but.
That's what happens when I don't.
Discharge side.
That's why I said I need a break. I gotta get I'm hoping to push it to like the 13th of May.
Good night, thank you. Thank you very much. When are we?
At least.
The 13th, she said. We don't have a meeting next week. You promised me the 29th.
I already put the 29th.
Yeah, we haven't, that was,
More than a week, everything
that was
was
taken out.
I'm so far behind.
If we don't have meetings, we're not going to be able to keep up with the work.
But I'm so overloaded with work, I can't get it done.
Yeah.
Kathy, are you comfortable with this? Do we have, no, Kathy, are you comfortable?
No, I'm not.
Okay, fine. Then, just take a look, all right, tomorrow. Pick a date.
Well, it's just, I mean.
Mr. Angelo, what?
Ken.
Okay, Ken, Mr. Albert, yeah.
Can you notify me if there's any other,
Upcoming meetings reference this, I will notify you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will, you still at the same house?
Yes.
I got your number.
Okay, good.
All right, I will call you. Are we saying that?
Well, this time you sent me, thing in writing.
I can do that too. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Have a good night. Be careful.
If we don't meet to talk about the orders of conditions on these decisions, how does she get the information?
Yes.
I mean, I understand that we can all submit it to her singularly, but then we end up meeting and we don't agree on time, we don't agree on it, and then we end up having to do that in the meeting. So, I mean, and Kathy doesn't even have to be here for a meeting to discuss that type of stuff. I'll take the minutes. You know what I mean? All we need to do is kind of, I think, I don't know, is put our heads together and get our heads wrapped around what are we doing with these projects. And to me, taking the next 2 weeks off is not going to help us.
That's why I suggest everyone bring stuff home.
I do, I mean.
And then come to a meeting, the next meeting, have everything together, what everyone wants.
I can take minutes. I mean, Kathy needs to concentrate on what she has to do. She has a limited amount of time, and she can't, I understand it. You just can't be here at everything taking minutes. I can take minutes of a meeting. That's
The best, one of the
12 hours is killing us because these decisions are long, they're hard to write, and they take a lot of effort to get done.
One of the best things to do is I'll grab the decisions you have last plans, and then we'll have those, we can look at them, and then you just gotta take into consideration where it is, what's going on.
The Westbrook
And get the Westbrook
ones that we're in sync with them.
Well, we put the pressure on them to give that to us. They said they-
Yeah, he said, Derick is speaking,
Favor.
Pedro said he'd get him to it, so.
All right, so
We'll find out.
We'll post a meeting for the sixth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can post them, we don't have to hold them, we can cancel.
Yeah.
If you wait too long, you can't have one a day anyway.
What time on the sixth?
Do you want to do the 6th and the 20th? To discuss what you guys are bringing here, what you want, the decision. And then I can put something together for the 20th, because the next one is Memorial, and then meet after Memorial.
There you go, 6 and the 20th.
I'm not gonna be around the 10th of June.
I'm on vacation.
No, I really am.
No, I got
So we're Captain Press out the 10th of June. So,
6 and the 20th. Time?
Whatever.
well, it's hard for
I'm
me
good
because I'm
whenever.
with Jack. Which better I am,
Take charge. Tell them what's going on.
I'm tired. I need
Yeah,
you
right.
to do your
Take
homework.
charge. Tell them what's gotta be done. That's it.
So I need homework done.
Is there anything I can do to help you in the office? I can type really well. I can type really well.
That I'm
What's that, typing?
type in words a minute. I used to take dictation.
One of the best things I ever did was teach my kids how to type.
Motion to close. Second. All in favor? Aye.